Let me see if I can find it. It'll probably pop up, right, if there's people in the waiting room? Like I'll get like a notification or something?
Yeah, I think you get a notification if you look in the participants.
Okay, cool.
All right, so this means, Tom, if I'm gonna run this, can I photocopy that agenda?
Come on, what the frick?
Looks like we're on the air, is that right? Okay. All right, this is Chris Menard. The chair has not arrived yet, so I will take over chair responsibilities, I guess. In accordance with requirements of open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. It is not on Facebook Live this week. I guess we've been having trouble logging on to that or something. The following information is provided for members of the public that would like to participate remotely. Our chair's walking in. To participate remotely, go to the lunenburgma.gov, and it has all the links to the meeting and the phone numbers. The agenda lists all topics which may be discussed at the meeting, and those are reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. If we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I can just jump in real quick, because I have host privileges and I have no idea how this works. In the top left corner, it says recording paused.
You want to start it?
Start it.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
All right. We should be recording now. I apologize for anyone who, well, no, we're live, so it doesn't matter, but all right, I just turned it on.
I think that's just a backup recording as well, so, but what do I know? All right. I'll let you get going, and then I can hand it over back to you. Any announcements? Okay, any,
I do have one.
okay,
I got a second question from the Who Are You Smarter Than Our Sixth Graders, requesting not only a team from us, but also a team name. So I told her that I would bring it up again this evening and get her a definitive answer after this meeting.
okay.
So I'd just like to bring that up later on. So think about it for now, and we'll talk about it later on.
By way of an announcement, when is that?
That is the 29th.
It's a Friday, right?
Correct.
Okay,
It
I
is
looked it up. I won't be
Friday, 28th.
available, otherwise I would have loved to join in on that, but yeah.
Friday the 28th. I believe 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And by the way, we know the answer to that. Are we smarter? The answer is no.
No.
So this, why even bother?
Last year, the finance committee had a perfect score.
We did.
Nice.
Really?
Yes,
But we lost to the
you.
Woo Girls,
But we
who
lost.
also had a perfect score.
yes. Although it's still being contested.
It's a hotly debated topic.
We need official buzzers going
Exactly.
into next year. All right. Any public comment from the public? Any public?
So I don't see a waiting room at all. I'm assuming that means that no one is in a waiting room?
If you want to check the chat, or the
Okay,
participants.
the participants, yeah, I opened it and I don't see anyone there,
It'll
so
pop up on your screen at the top
Okay,
as well,
cool.
if there is anyone.
there's no one on it then.
All right, any public comment from the board? All right, as we enter new business, I will transfer the meeting back over to the chair.
Good evening, and apologies for being late. Traffic was not kind. All right, I'm just pulling up.
It's the season of the sun being in your eyes during
It is.
rush hour, so lots of
Okay. All right, so I think tonight will actually be probably a pretty quick meeting, which is good. So first, we would need to go back over any of the warrant articles that we did not vote on, deferred, or actually just the deferred ones, to see if there are any updated numbers that we want to vote on, specifically the capital item numbers and whatnot. I believe there have been changes. So, Madam Town Manager, I believe you sent the note out.
Is she
Is she on yet? Oh, she may not be on yet. Never mind.
So I did notice that there's a
There's a
updated
document.
warrant with now numbers, not letters, and it looks like she's highlighted the sections that require us to either revote because something changed, or we may be able to vote on that we previously deferred.
Mm-hmm. Just opening it now. I'll share it. Let me join the meeting too.
Recording in progress.
Okay. And it looks like the town manager may have just joined as well.
Excellent.
All right. Caesar,
Should I transfer it
if
over to
you
you?
don't mind, yes.
Okay, so I'm assuming it just make host, yeah, okay.
That's
cool.
fine, yeah, I don't mind if, yeah, that works perfectly
All right,
fine. Okay. We are gonna share, which document specifically? We wanna do,
There's
Where
a
is the
draft
warrant?
ATM warrant booklet.
oh, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't sharing
Oh.
work stuff or, I don't think anybody cares about,
Finances.
well, not my stuff, just work spectra and all sorts of fun and exciting things. All right. So Heather, we were just bringing up the updated town meeting warrant to kind of go through, and Chris had noted that you had highlighted some sections for us. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Try to make it easy to identify which ones you need to go back to.
That's the kind of thing we like. Thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome.
Did we get sent that?
It's on,
Just in
it's on the drive.
correct.
It's the one that says booklet. It was added like not too long ago, so it's the most recent one.
There we go. Okay. So the capital plan, has anything changed with the capital plan, article number 6?
No.
Okay. So we did receive an email from a member of the school committee this afternoon that I saw come in, mentioning that the school committee is going to be looking back at additional capital planning numbers, I guess. But I'm not entirely sure how that would affect our numbers entirely, other than it would be going, well, I suppose if it goes up, that would change things. Have you heard anything about that as well?
I have not. What did that email say in regards to what project?
So they have a topic on their next school committee meeting, I guess it's on the 11th, just to review the capital plan recommendation and probably take their own vote, I guess, or discussion on it. The email was to recommend that we just defer it in lieu of their meeting, all under the, kind of unfortunate situation that we're in is where the capital plan just came to everyone a little bit late this year, based on the other issues that drove it to that situation. So that was the email. It was recommending us take a deferred action until, they had a chance to weigh in on it. Or any other board that, it's probably just them, though, that it would affect.
So you
I
have,
guess
go ahead.
I guess I don't understand why. I mean, it's been through the capital planning process. All the information's on the slides relative to what was provided.
So from what I understand, it looks like it looks like they just want to have a chance to vote on their recommendation for the new additions to the capital plan with the additional funds that you've released or that you've allocated or suggested that we use to fund down the list a little bit further.
All right. So part of my recommendation was going back and looking at their priority list. So it followed my priority list, followed their priority list as far as projects.
So one question I have related to that, is there the capital planning committee priority numbers, what were 11, 13, and 14?
11 on the list. So that's in the booklet. The new 11, 14?
This one?
I don't know, so I'm looking at the warrant booklet,
Yes.
and I just see your priorities, 1 through 12, understand, and then it said capital planning committee priorities, and it goes 1 through 10 covered, but 11, 13, and 14 aren't on this list, so I'm just wondering what those were.
It would be a truck for the school.
Truck for the school?
Is that what, let me see. Is that you're referring to school projects?
I'm just referring to, under the capital planning committee priorities, what were their number 11, 13, and 14,
Okay.
which perhaps are your 13, 14, 15.
Yeah, this probably goes back to how a couple of projects were removed. So it changed the numbering, basically. Let me open up.
I know in talking with a member of the school committee, there were 2 items that they felt pretty passionate about. One was the sander truck, because there were situations where there was icing going on during school events, evening school events. And then the other one is the study related to the bowing of the wall at the track. And I don't know if those were 11, 13, and 14 or not.
Hold on 1 second.
All of that just to say that the recommendation was for us to defer so that schools could make a recommendation, or at least a discussion, prior to town meeting.
Is the school committee making that request or is one member making that request?
It's on the agenda for the 11th.
Okay.
And there was one member talking in their own capacity that asked for us to recommend deferral.
But at the same time, we're voting on the capital plan as presented to us. And if it does change, we would have to vote on it again at town meeting anyways.
We would.
So as it stands, all we have to vote on is what's in front of us, currently put forward by the town manager.
I understand. My own personal opinion on this process is I tend to like any of the other boards and commissions that have oversee items that have, budgetary responsibility to weigh in on us to say that they're in agreement with what becomes the town manager's recommendations. And in this case, the timing of the capital plan just made it so that schools apparently didn't have an agenda item prior to tonight to do so. So I understand the concern. We can, as a group, either say we want to defer to town meeting or we want to just recommend as is. And again, the one thing that would sway my vote one way or another is if the capital planning committees 11, 13, and 14 had nothing to do with schools, then I think we're following the capital planning committee's recommendations, somewhat reprioritized by town manager, but in line with available funds per, our other policy discussions that we talked about earlier in the week, so.
Okay, so from my original list, the original list that everyone was working off of, 11, 13, and 14, you asked?
I think so, because I'm just going off the table now in the warrant book, which the ones that are perhaps a discrepancy is 11, 13, and 14, because number 15 is on the list from the CPC priorities.
So you're asking compare on the list before you in the booklet,
Yeah.
11, 13,
Yeah.
and 14. Okay. 11 for the capital planning committee was McNally Park. And that again was not as high a priority for them as the treatment at Whalen Lake and Marshall Pond. 13 is the school pickup truck with plow and sander for $68,000. And let me give you the price for McNally Park was $50,000. The truck was $68,000. And 14 is the DPW for the cemetery, the turf restoration. And they, as well, their priority was the headstone restoration project.
Okay.
So I understand your point as far as going back to the people who made the request. That was all part of the consideration when I put together the prioritization list, was their priorities.
Okay, what was the truck price again?
68,000.
McNally was 50K.
50 cemetery turf restoration was 50,000.
It's different numbers, but at least the numbers are up there. But at this point, even if the school department goes back and revisits the capital list, it would still have to go to capital planning for a vote, which would then have to go to the town manager for approval, which would then have to come to town meeting. I don't see how, even if they say they would like to pull something off, I suppose they could then go forward to the town manager and say, we'd like to remove something off of this list. But as far as reprioritization, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the school committee, or the school committee has the ability to override the capital planning committee's recommendation that then goes to the town manager. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right. The capital planning committee make their prioritization list in a public vote. I go through my own process, do my priority list, and that's how it's.
Right. So even if the school department or the school committee decides to revisit some of these and talk about them or reprice them, it still isn't going to change anything. It can't change anything because that vote didn't pass at special town meeting. So we can't change anything on the capital plan as is. So we would only be voting on what's been put forward. Unless they decide to pull something from there, which would just decrease it, which we are allowed to do at town meeting.
So even if we vote tonight, they're still able to potentially do that if they wanted to, right?
All that they would be able to do is request at town meeting to amend the capital plan to remove a specific capital project,
So I guess at this point,
I believe. Is that correct?
Well,
It would be up by the amount, so they
Just
can
the
change
amount.
that's town council's opinion. That's
Correct.
not the opinion shared by many in town. But, yeah, we'd have to fight through that at town meeting if we wanted to go that route. Ultimately, it's the
It's up to the moderator.
moderator on what he
Right.
would allow.
so I guess I'm just not sure what actual difference it'll make if we vote to recommend approval or defer tonight.
The only difference it would make is just what Chris was mentioning about allowing the committees the opportunity to kind of have a first crack at their preferences and votes before we then come together and vote on it.
Okay,
So it's sort of a cart before the horse scenario here.
gotcha.
But in this instance, I think it's a cart that's before the horse, that's before whatever comes after, after the cart. Because it would have to go through so many channels in order to change anything other than an amendment on town floor.
All right, I mean, my own, now knowing what the next three projects are, I probably would have prioritized it the way it's in the warrant anyways. I would not have put McNally, the truck, or the cemetery turf above any of these projects.
So in the warrant, no, it's not listed on the warrant, that's right. Okay.
It is.
It is.
It's
It
up
is.
top.
In the booklet,
Oh, is it that I just go flying by it?
it's in the very front.
It's in like the preamble section. Yeah,
There it
right
is.
there.
Okay. So would you feel comfortable voting on it today then, as it is?
I would, because I would still recommend these, given that amount of money. I mean, I think the real debate is as whether there were other monies to be had for these projects. Given time, doesn't seem like we have that. Perhaps monies become available between now and special town meeting where these capital projects could be put up for vote. I don't know how quickly they can get a truck with a plow. I don't think it's a special truck, so that might be more easy than a,
I don't know.
so I understand the concern that was made. I understand that why schools wants to revisit the discussion on the capital plan, not knowing what they will discuss or how the outcome would be, and the fact that I think that this is the right prioritization. I think vote to support it.
Anyone else have an opinion?
I agree. Even if they were able to get through the capital and through the town manager, we'd have to vote on it anyways, but, so, at the town meeting. And if they want to make an amendment at the town meeting, we're going to have to vote on it again, so it makes sense just to, and it's good because this is going to be presented to everybody in town. They'll see that if we do vote for this, how we vote, and it'll give them, and that's our job, to kind of give them a heads up on what we think. So I think it would be good to vote on it, as is.
Yeah, I think, again, our charge is to vote on what's presented to us, and this has been presented to us.
Well, I don't know if I share that. I think our charge is to help shape the budget and make recommendations for the town. We are the legislative body in town. But again, as presented, I am in agreement with that being the priority, and the other topics we talked about earlier at last week's meeting on following policy related to stabilization funds, et cetera. I think, my own opinion is that this is the right list, so I would be in favor of it.
I suppose what I mean by voting on what's in front of us is just that this is the culmination of all of CPC's work, town manager's work, all of the committee's work and department heads ahead of time, that this is sort of what it's come together as we have it today. As opposed to sort of,
I agree. I just think there were two factors that drove this year's budget cycle that were unfortunate. One was the ability to receive the governor's budget late, and then everything related to how much went into the overlay account led very little time for discussion here and at other boards on what the final capital plan list would be. So, but given where we are and with the facts on the table, I still think that this is the right plan. Understanding that there is concerns perhaps from other boards on that.
I certainly would welcome them to stand up and talk at town meeting then as well.
At which point we could
Give it a shot.
give another recommendation. So I agree
Right.
with all that logic as well.
Okay. Caesar, Jay, anything else?
I don't feel too strongly either way if we vote to recommend it or defer.
Are you referring to whether we should defer because of what the school committee's asking? Yeah, would be okay voting it instead of, they can go through their process.
Okay.
All right, so I guess then I will make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 6 as laid out in the draft annual
Second.
town meeting warrant booklet.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Are the first 6 items, are these the ones that been already funded through ARPA or other?
No,
Well,
those are
There's-
one,
Original.
1, 5, and 6 are.
Yeah.
And it says it at the bottom of the table.
Yep.
986,000.
The ambulance and the 2 dump trucks, 6-wheel dump trucks.
The only, clarification perhaps that could be made in the table is tying that 986, and showing the reader that relates to your priority 1, 5, and 6.
That's a good point. Maybe just a asterisk.
An asterisk or something, yeah.
I agree. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of recommending approval of the capital plan as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed? All right, we are unanimous to recommend approval on Article 6.
Just changed, right?
I haven't gotten that far yet. Have we gotten anywhere on Article 8? I know the select board went into executive session on Tuesday.
Yeah. We're still not finalized.
Okay. We'll skip over Article 8, which is the collective bargaining agreement with the local firefighters union. Said 14 changed, yes, okay. So the sewer enterprise fund, Article 14. That's changed, I assume?
Yes, I sent an email to the committee when I was notified that they would be voting on a revised budget, and that came after your public hearing last week. I was originally told that they had flexibility within the budget and be a need, or they couldn't get a meeting together to vote in time, so that's now changed. The spreadsheet in the back end of the booklet indicate the revised budget. So this is to reflect the usage fees, increase in usage fees.
In their omnibus budget, or in your omnibus budget, that list?
No, and there's a chart just for sewer enterprise.
Just for sewer, okay,
Page 21, I think.
thank you.
Yeah, page 21.
There we go, okay. So the user charges have gone up substantially?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it was like $8,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's 8,631,
So not substantially?
53 cents.
If it went up that much by an individual, that would be pretty substantial.
It would be. Okay, so at this point then, I guess we have the option of deferring, or we could just re-vote on the amended value.
I would recommend, I'd make a motion, we recommend approval to the amended value.
Second.
Any discussion on it?
Yeah, can you just have,
Can I just add, the sewer commission is not voting on this till 11. I mean, this was put forward by the sewer chair, sewer business manager, and everything. I just want to make that clear. So,
Oh, so this has not been approved by the sewer department at all?
by the sewer commission, they're taking their vote on this April 11th. I don't see an issue with them approving it, but I just want to make that clear.
All right, then maybe,
I think maybe we change it then, to amend your,
yeah, so I guess I rescind that. Do you want to rescind your second?
Sure, I rescind my second.
All right, then I would recommend we defer to town meeting.
Second.
Jay, you were gonna say
I
something
just,
before?
yeah, I just for clarification, I don't know if I'm reading this wrong, in the email, it looks like it went down, not up. Looks like it went from 1,348,482 down to 1,339,850. Am I reading it wrong, or?
It did. They took, they're reducing their amount that they're spending on capital, and that falls under the miscellaneous. So they're offsetting the increase by reduction in their capital line. So it's an overall reduction in the subtotal line, but with an increase in usage fees, and that's what initiated.
They're moving one from one to the other?
It all falls under miscellaneous, so the usage fees increased under that line. And I don't have the full line item detail in front of me for their budget. But the overall impact is a reduction in the subtotal line.
So it's an increase in the budget of the 8631.
A change in
Sounds like it increases their budget, but it decreases their reserves.
Oh, they're just moving money.
essentially.
Is there, what they pay to Fitchburg is going up.
Yes.
They're taking out of capital. Okay.
Any other discussion? All right, there's a motion and a second to recommend deferral. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We are unanimous to recommend deferring the town meeting on Article 14, I believe. Okay, moving along, 15, good, good. Article 20. This was a change, I'll just read it now. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of $25,000 for consultant services to complete the survey program to inventory historic homes within the town, or to take any other action relative thereto. So this is just changing it from within the historical district to within the entire town, which is much better, I think. Is there anything else to add to this one, Ms. Lemieux? You're muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
It was just that change to make sure that it covered any properties within the town and not just the historic district.
Okay. If I understood that correctly, it's a dollar for dollar match, or is it we're getting 50% back?
50% back.
Okay,
So it would be reimbursement.
okay. And then we'll just have to,
That would close out at the end of that
got it.
year.
Okay. Any other questions about that one?
No.
No.
We'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 20.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Motion has been made and seconded to recommend approval of Article 20. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We are unanimous to recommend approval of Article 20.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I just jump in for one?
absolutely. Come on up.
I came in to this meeting tonight because there's no way anybody can get in to the system and participate in the Zoom.
The Zoom?
I did all the right things and the voice, the lady's voice came on and said, this is not a Zoom meeting, so I don't know what happened, but I just wanted to let you know that.
With the agenda that was printed on the town website?
Yeah,
You mean by phone?
by phone, yeah,
By phone. Oh.
yeah.
Well, it would
Oh,
have been the
interesting.
same Zoom meeting, right? So if people can join from the computer.
Did the link expire?
No, because I got the link right off of the agenda. That's how I joined, at least.
Yeah, I got everything off of the agenda.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
but
weird.
I just couldn't go that next step, and
It's interesting.
I just wanted you to know.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same webinar ID as the link for the Zoom. All right.
The other question I have real quick is, at what time can Joe Citizen, in this case Dave Citizen, discuss public comment on,
On any of these,
yeah,
because it is not a public hearing this evening, it would be at public comment.
It could be your discretion.
no,
It can be my discretion, or it could be my discretion.
yeah, that's fine. I'm not
Which-
looking to rearrange.
No, I mean,
If you want to do public comment.
If he missed out on public
Yeah.
comment because of a snafu, then we could just,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Come
Come on up.
I just wanted to,
The microphone is yours.
well, okay, I mean, I think when,
can you come to the microphone?
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to bring him away.
Or he can bring you one if you'd rather.
Also, since we have no idea who you are,
yeah, right.
you just name-
And I'm going to tell you my real name, no other name, I'll tell you. I went that route. Dave Rogers, 82 Highland Street. I had a couple of things, and I checked with some folks, but the bottom line is, when will the public have the opportunity to discuss these issues, or the submissions, the articles, at town meeting?
Well, we had a public hearing last week
Yeah,
where we went through all of these and voted on them.
yeah.
We have another public hearing scheduled just in case for
April 20th.
April 20th, 2 weeks from tonight,
Yep.
just in case we needed to revisit anything. So those would be the two options before town meeting.
Okay. So the court of last resort would be town meeting?
Correct.
Yep. Okay, that's all. Fine. I'm okay. I just wanted to let you know that there was a screw-up in the, technology.
I'll reach out to Heidi. Thank you
Yeah,
for bringing
very
it up.
frustrating sitting home, but that's fine.
Thank you for
Thanks,
coming
guys.
in.
Thank you.
Thank God you live close.
Oh, we moved. We're at the trailer park. I get calls about that, too.
Now, there you go.
Amanda's saying that she had to type in the link as well, which is interesting because I was able to just click right on it.
Oh, I typed it in myself.
It liked
I can
mine.
click
because
on
the-
it either.
Okay.
Yeah,
It was because it was PDF, I think, I don't know.
right, yeah, it wasn't actually a link.
Oh, right. I'll
was
send a
scanned.
message off to Heidi as well and see if there's anything going on with it. Thank you, Amanda, for your note too.
Yeah, maybe that's the issue, actually.
Could be.
Yeah.
Typing it in.
Because usually you can click it because it's a.
Right. Okay, so we have voted on Article 20. We're moving on to Article 21. Which is the Select Board's article. Did they only change the preamble and it looks like they added and they changed number 6 if I'm not correct. Is that correct? Okay. So the preamble reads, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board on behalf of the town to petition the general court for the enactment of special legislation substantially as provided below, provided that the general court, with advanced approval by the select board, which is hereby authorized, may reasonably vary the form and substance of the requested legislation within the scope of the general public objectives of the petition. And again, this is an act authorizing the town of Lunenburg to establish a means-tested senior citizen property tax exemption, which was explained in pretty good detail at our meeting last week by select board members Franco and Alonso. The only other section that was changed was under Section 2 of the Board of Assessors of the Town of Lunenburg may deny an application for exemption if the board finds that an applicant has excessive assets that place the applicant outside of the intended recipients of the senior citizen tax exemption created by this act. Real property shall qualify for the exemption under Section 1 if the following criteria are met. Criterias 1 through 5 are unchanged, and criteria 6 now reads,
No, it's actually
didn't change. It's
section
section
6.
I'm sorry.
Just says we can revoke.
Okay. Section 6 is changed. Section 2 is unchanged. This act may be revoked by an affirmative vote of a majority of town meeting voters at any annual or special town meeting. Any such revocation shall take effect 30 days after an affirmative vote of the town. I feel like that was written by Mr. Franco. Sounds like his language.
Perfect.
Does anybody have any conversation or discussion about the two changes that have been made in this?
So I guess my opinion on this is that we should take a recommendation for approval or not, even though it has no direct budgetary financial impact. It comes across as though it might. There is definitely money involved in it from the perspective of tax rates, et cetera. So the question is, do we want to say no direct financial impact, or do we want to urge to recommend approval because we believe in the article?
Yeah, good point.
I've thought about it quite a bit over the last week, and I know initially I had said that I don't see a financial impact because it's a net zero change in the incoming levies overall for the town. But I agree, it's not a net zero for certain members of the community, which would directly have a financial impact on the town. It would allow some people to potentially stay in their homes that have been in their homes for years and years. What is it, 15 years, I believe, by minimum? So it would, I think it does, in my opinion, have a non-traditional but absolutely direct financial impact.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with recommending approval. What's your thoughts, Jay?
Well, there's no budget impact. It's shifting the way the money is accounted for. But I guess people should understand that it's shifting the burden from one taxpayer to another taxpayer.
That is correct.
That could have a negative effect for other people, even though it's supposed to be a small amount. It could be an impact over time.
Any other discussion before we make a motion?
All right.
Anybody want to be bold?
I'd make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 21.
Second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion now that the motion has been made? Hearing none. All those in favor of recommending approval of Article 21?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
I'm going to say no. I understand the purpose of it, but at this point, I can't support it.
Understood, thank you. So we are 4-1 recommending approval. All right. That brings us to the end of the warrant articles. Excellent. And that also brings us to the end of the, stop sharing again so I don't share my email again like I did last time. That brings us to the end of A and B. Is there anything else, Madam Town Manager, that you would like to discuss about annual town meeting with us before? So I know you won't be able to attend on our next meeting.
Just the consent calendar. So the select board will be discussing the consent calendar on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
So that would get sent to the finance committee. We should really make sure we're all on the same page that we agree on the consent calendar. So I'd send that out to you once that's done for your meeting on the 20th.
Excellent. And we can take a vote on that on the 20th for sure. At this point, do you have an idea as to how many you're planning to put on there? Is it I assume the usual ones are going to end up on there, but have you started making a list at all?
Controversial, right.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on town meeting before we move on? The warrant, budget numbers, capital? Excellent. Moving on to town manager report. Is there anything to report?
I don't have anything tonight. There's other things on your agenda that we'll be discussing that maybe there'll be updates on.
Excellent. And I don't believe we have Ms. Brochu on, so I don't think we have a finance director report as well. So moving on to old business. Our committee report. It's been tricky to come up with it this year. Given everything that's kind of going on with town taxes, abatements, with changes to the capital plan using ARPA funds, with moving things around, with overlay accounts, with everything else. It is, I see, and this kind of harks back to what you were saying, Chris, about we're sort of up against a whole bunch of different things at the same time this budget season. And as a result, I see a lot of flux that's kind of happening in and around the budget and therefore in and around town meeting. And to take a stance to say, at least in my opinion, that the town is specifically in a solid financial footing is difficult to say. I think given that, yes, while we have plenty of money in terms of being able to fund capital projects, and yes, we have plenty of money in terms of being able to cover the overlay account in its worst case scenario. And yes, we do have ARPA funds that we're able to spend, and we have ESSER funding that's going to, disappear in the next year and a half. It still is a difficult position for what's coming up over the next year or two with the town, in terms of tax levies, in terms of assessments, in terms of funded positions at the school department, in terms of ARPA funding and where that's going to end up going, in terms of the updates to the pavement management plan and what we're going to be doing with that one. So to take specific positions other than just to kind of bulletize what's already in the budget itself, I've really been struggling with sort of coming to a definitive answer for the finance committee to report, other than just, here's the numbers, which to me seemed a little bit less genuine and more just factual, I guess. And so that's sort of where I'm at with it right now, and I'd love to have a little bit of a conversation on it, because to be completely candid, it's not completed at this point, and it's not completed because it's been this difficult job of trying to meet the town's needs while also trying to be aware of, I guess, not necessarily aware of it, but at least understanding of sort of the dilemmas that the town is in at this point in terms of civility and all of those sort of different facets. Go ahead. That's kind of at least where I'm at for now.
Okay, so I guess, I'm not sure if, typically we do include this in the warrant. Are we gonna then go with, we're gonna provide this at town meeting or something? Like, what's our,
That's sort
do we
of,
statutorily need to have this done at a certain date?
if we want it printed in the article, it needs to be completed before it goes to the printer. But there's nothing that statutorily states that that it has to go specifically in the warrant. It can go as a secondary piece of paper adjacent to the warrant. It just is in the, if I remember how I read the charter, it just says that we will provide a letter for the town.
Okay, ultimately it goes in the annual report.
Correct.
Okay, so, I mean, just my own opinion on some of the things you stated is, I think, yeah, we're going through an issue where there's abatements in mass this year, but I don't see that happening next year. I think there's going to be appraisals going on. They're going to work through that issue, and I think they're on path to have it worked through by next year. So I think that's kind of a one-off situation that will be fixed, either by the town or by the Department of Revenue. And whatever it is, I think we'll get back to, that 90 to 110% threshold across the town. And we won't have to be putting all this money into overlay accounts next year. I think the approach that town manager took for a conservative estimate for the overlay account was a good approach. Potentially that will result in excess funds that could be released back into the budget for capital projects, et cetera. I think for this year, capital project-wise, I mean, there were some nice-to-haves below the line that, perhaps could have been funded, but I think generally speaking, we're in good shape there. I think we've taken our eye perhaps off the ball, maybe, Tom can correct me, but, we've been distracted a bit on the building committee, probably because of availability of certain town members towards driving that to conclusion. And to me, that's always been kind of the big elephant that we need to bite from a long-term planning. I think ultimately the letter of health is going to come down towards what we can put forward as a 5 and 10-year plan for all of our needs. And what I mean by that is infrastructure. What's the infrastructure? How many, of these bridges and et cetera are going to go bad and when? I think we're working on a plan on that. We talked about OPEB and some other, things that we're going to work on over the summer. But I don't think anything has drastically changed with respect to that outlook from where it was last year. I mean, perhaps we'll lose $1 million of tax levy somewhere in there. So I still think we're in a strong position as a town. I think we were able to weather this year's storm. There's obviously some potential headwinds that we need to work through, and we need to lobby from our legislators so that we are given back our fair share. We'll have to see what the so-called millionaires tax results in, extra funding to the schools as promised. I'm not sure I hold out great hope in that, being a lifetime Massachusetts resident. But, if we believe that will come true, then perhaps that's where the ESSER funds that are rolling off come to bear. But, so nothing's been presented from the school committee saying there's dire roads ahead. But, they have stated that there's some wishes and there's some things that they would like to do. They'll have to figure out the ESSER funding and reductions. We still have $2 million, I think, in ARPA funds that can be put forward if emergency situations come up. And honestly, I mean, we had $2.8 million of free cash this year, so clearly we're in a good situation relative to current tax structures and operating budgets. So I think we're in a good position, even with, the challenge that's going to come with this year and the, potential abatements impact on revenue.
I think that I agree we've weathered this storm this year well, but I don't think I share your optimism in it being resolved after this year. I think that having to go back for the 2024 numbers to have I'm concerned that we're going to be in a similar situation next year, either with assessments still being all over the place, potentially, or with a drop in the ability to levy to the same numbers that we were levying this year, which drops us, as you said, potentially $1 million, which starts us off next year in a deficit working situation, which if we hit the worst case scenario, and we do have to spend the $1.5 million out of the overlay account to cover all the abatements, it's great that we had that $2 million in free cash, or $2.8 million in free cash, but that's now effectively gone. So our cushion is gone, which sets us up that if we end up having another storm next year, we're not necessarily able to weather it as well. And I agree, we have the ARPA funding for an emergency, that's great. And I know it's very lenient on how we can spend the funds, but I guess I just don't share the same optimism that we are completely out of this storm at this point. I see it being a 2, potentially 3-year issue that we have to work through. What else?
So I'm generally optimistic about this as well, but I try to be optimistic always. I think you're right, but I do think there's a lot that we can talk about that we're doing about it. So I don't know.
But I think we don't know what the future is going to hold. We don't know what the next abatement or whatever issue is that's going to come up. Living in the town as long as I have and seeing what's happened in other towns is always something. I don't know what the issue with the abatements are. Selectman Jeffries mentioned it at the select board that he has something that he heard from one of the assessors but I don't know what that is, and he can't say what it is. So hopefully there will be some kind of outcome from that, at least, and then it might have to take okay, there's a major problem with the assessments of all the properties, and we need to do kind of like we did with the roads, special project and extra money, and then we'll have to deal with that, whatever that is. Or it's a minor thing that a couple of things done here, there, and it's done, and boom, we're ahead. We don't know what that is. And I think that's always the case with any town. So I think we have to say what we do know and what we don't know, and, based on what we do know, this is how the town is, but these are the landmines in the future that we need to focus on, which the town seems to be doing. I don't think there's any ostrich heads in the sand kind of thing going on with the town. I think everybody's aware of what the issues are. Building, what kind of infrastructure will we have 10 years from now, I think is going to be a big thing for the town, and what kind of debt we're going to have, and what, and are we going to build a new school? Are we going to fix Turkey Hill? Those are things we don't know yet. But I think that's always the case. We always don't know. And even if we think we know, 6 months later, it was wrong because something else came up. So we just have to do what we know and make sure we tell everybody what the things that we don't know, and we're watching it. And I think that's all we can do.
So do we want to come at it from a standpoint of strictly factual then?
I think so. I think there's a lot that we need to cover in it. I don't think we should be too opinionated about it anyway, unless that's like historically something that we do in those reports.
It's usually pretty fact-driven. I mean, I do think we tend to lay out what are potential challenges that are, known challenges ahead of us. And I think, we're going to have to continue to get our eye back on the ball on the building reuse committee and where our major projects are in the future. And I think we listed a bunch of those in this discussion, and those could just be, again, bullets of things we need to keep our eye on through the future. But again, I mean, in the end of the day, the assessments went through a hiccup. Closed loop systems go through hiccups every once in a while. I mean, it's just the nature of those things. But I think with the attention put on it, the scrutiny of the way it was done, I honestly don't see how we could have the same issue going into next year. It's got to be fixed by next year. That's my opinion. I mean, it's worked for however many years it's done, and then something happened. And we'll see what the results are,
But that should be addressed in the letter is kind of is my other concern. And
Sure.
How to address it in the letter, other than just, to come across and say we're divided is an option, to come across and say we don't know is an option, to come across and say, we have a lot of different options there, but to say that, yes, there was an issue that's come up, yes, it's being addressed, but as a body that represents the legislature before town, or, outside of town meeting, I feel like it does a disservice to just leave it at that. And that's kind of the issue of, it gets into the personal portion of at that point.
Would it be helpful to at least include something like, if this were to happen again next year and we anticipate a certain number of abatement applications, that we should identify sources of funding to put aside next year like we did this year? Is that like a possible solution?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the other way you could attack it is, in order for this not to be an issue next year, every effort and all attention needs to be made to making sure that any findings out of the investigation are put in place over the next, prior to next year's tax rate assessment. That's a way of being positive, yet pointing out the obvious of what needs to occur so that we can get past this issue and move on to, again, I feel that that's going to happen. I think the attention is on this. Some people may not like the answer, but in the end, I think we will come up with a way of getting that factual and understood and right. So,
Any other thoughts on it? Okay.
I mean, the other maybe more concerning thing for the town is just the general state of the economy in the United States with inflation, fuel rates and those sorts of things. So those are potentially other outside of our control headwinds towards, us to be able to continue to maintain the services at the level that we currently operate at. And move towards, new buildings and facilities and those things that we think we need.
That'll directly affect all of those purchase prices.
Yeah.
I'll also point out that inflation specifically, we heard from like every single department head during the presentation, so it's probably something that we should call out.
That's a good point. Okay.
But generally, I think facts is the right way to, is how it should be written.
I agree. All the
And then
bullets are factual. That's not a problem at all. It's the getting into the understanding of, or at least the acknowledgement of the issue of, that elephant that's in the room. And I don't want to do a disservice to the town to say that we aren't sympathetic, but also,
We can say, the town has been working on reviewing the assessments of real estate, and we strongly recommend that they continue that to its full completion. I mean, we don't know what that is, but we also could say that there are, the Municipal Building Committee needs to move ahead and make a recommendation on their recommendation so the town can make some long-term plans. And we also need to make sure that they stay within the bounds of the debt service coverage and all that. And then I think the third big item, I think Chris mentioned is money coming in from the state. That's what, 20-30% of our budget, and we're getting like a 1% increase. Is it 1 or
Yeah, something
within? It just seems ridiculous that it's as little as we would get. Now, maybe we got more money last year during COVID and something, and this is actually, on the path. I haven't looked at that, but was a bump last year, and maybe this year it's more in line to where we would have been without the bump. Okay, but it's the town needs the state to support us. 'Cause that's our money too. We pay state taxes, so it's our money. We need to get it back here. We've told the senators and representatives that, and see what happens. But I think we have to. Those are to me the three big items that we have that we don't know about, and they're the three things that could derail us. The fourth thing is the one we don't know about.
exactly.
That hasn't come across yet.
Okay. All right. These are some really good ideas. I appreciate the conversation. So yes, my plan at this point is just to have our document as a secondary document outside of the warrant. That way it still gets into the annual report separate from that.
Okay.
And we can go on from there. All right. Any other discussion on the report for now?
No, again, if you need someone to, bounce an idea or a draft off of in the meantime, you can do that with
Sure.
with me.
Okay.
Can't do it with everyone, right?
No,
But-
only here.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be helpful as well. All right, we've already discussed the capital plan. Any other conversation about that? Excellent. Does anybody want to get into the tax assessments or abatements at this point? We've already talked about it a little bit.
I saw somebody asked a question on Facebook, and I kind of responded, so I just want to say this publicly, that according to what the select board said at the meeting, the taxes for the third and fourth quarter are due no later than May 1st. And that was due to the delay, or the believed delay of the mailing of the February bill. So if you hadn't heard that already, that is, there will be, if you haven't paid your February, please pay it, but there would be no interest or late fees or anything like that if you pay it before, I think, May 1st.
And abatements can be now processed through May 1st.
Right, that's correct.
And also you can file for an extension as well, if you're coming up against that. Up against the 90 days.
They were talking about 90 days. It wasn't clear to me. They need time. I guess they wanted less, but then they said they wanted more because they wanted to do it correctly, and which I think makes sense, because you don't want to rush through somebody. I mean, you got 400 plus, but every one is somebody's most important thing they're dealing with. So we have to they should be dealing with it in a timely manner, but also with the effort and the time it takes to do, whatever that is.
Ms. Lemieux?
I was just going to add, that is all correct. So May 1st is the due date for third and fourth quarter taxes based on the treasurer collector's determination that there's enough doubt on the mailing date, and they see on the January 6th date. And there are no, for third quarter taxes, there's no interest due between February 1st and May 1st. And the abatement application deadline is now May 1st as well. So anyone who hasn't filed an abatement is able to file an abatement by May 1st. The assessor's office is mailing out extension forms to all the people that have abatement applications pending. So those are forthcoming, and then property owner picks the date that they would like the extension into.
Thank you.
Well,
All right. Moving on, we do not have any minutes to approve this week, so I have a feeling we're going to have a slug of them at our next meeting. So that will be fine. Committee reports. Does anybody have anything to report from any of the committees?
School committee met last night. We already know they're going to be discussing capital items at their next meeting. There were some line item transfers that were mentioned that I don't know if we're interested in sharing right now, but I have those if we are interested. And there's also a new position being posted for a co-teaching coach that's going to be paid for by recently acquired grant funding.
Co-teach, was it again?
I don't know what it is, but it is a co-teaching coach.
Co-teaching coach.
Yep.
You
Can
interested?
try to get answers if we really want to know, but yeah.
Coming out of retirement?
Yeah, my wife, geez, that's weird. My daughter is a brand-new teacher, and coaching for young teachers is good. I heard coaching, I just thought of that. But that's a co-teaching coach.
Yep. Well, that's my report for school committee.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other committees?
Nope.
All right. Future meetings. Any specific ideas for future meetings other than we sort of already have going on?
So I guess I do have one question, maybe town manager knows, is when then is the due date for the annual report that would be the need date for the finance committee report?
into the annual report book, you're asking?
Yeah, I think that's all the
Not
committee.
not the booklet that gets mailed out. The
Right.
town
Yeah.
warrant.
Yep.
I would have to ask Elaine, my assistant.
Okay. Maybe you could send us an email with that date.
Yes.
All right. Moving on, any public comment from the committee? I just have one. We still have to decide about, are you smarter than a sixth grader? So again, it is a fundraiser for the Boys and Girls Club of Lunenburg. And it is a admittedly fun event to join in. Takes about an hour and a half. You get to go up on stage. You get to get quizzed. You get to feel really dumb compared to some smart sixth graders. But it is the April 28th, so it's the end of the month on Friday. It's, I believe it's like 7 to 9:30 or something like that, or 7 to 8:30. So Caesar, I know you won't be in town.
No.
So you're free. Would anybody else like to join?
I will go.
We have two.
I have to study, though.
Yes, you do. Anyone else available?
I'm not sure, so I would not want to commit right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I mean, it's the 28th.
28th. I'll email the person back and just ask when they need an absolute yes or no by. And then I'll see if I can convince a few of you over email in the time being. All right. Any public comment from the public?
Rhonda Lucia, 181 Reservoir Road. I just came down to thank the Finance Committee for choosing not to defer the vote on the capital plan based on the request of the school committee. I followed the capital planning process very closely. Typically, I do every year. And it's my recollection that the last 3 years, the school committee has asked for reconsideration of items after the capital planning process had ended. And last year, I actually sent them a private email stating that they needed to do a better job prioritizing and presenting their own items. And then I'm going to read to you the list of items that they had for this year. Number 1, safety window film for all buildings, $160,000. Item number 2, exterior door replacement at the Turkey Hill, $160,000. Number 3, access and security upgrades at the primary in Turkey Hill, $131,000. Number 4, upgrade fire alarm system at Turkey Hill for $287,000. Number 5, athletic complex feasibility study for $50,000. And number 6 was the new pickup truck for $68,000. The grand total they were requesting was $856,000. Of these items, $578,000 were included in this year's capital plan. If you look at the prioritization, they put safety window film as their number 1 priority, and now they want to reprioritize their list. This just can't continue to happen every year. I would expect more from the people who claim to be able to teach our children critical thinking, social emotional skills, basic communication skills, and civics, that you have to make an argument at the proper time, or you run the risk of not having your items approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Any other public comment from the public? Seeing none. Upcoming meetings, we have our meeting on April 20th coming up still, which will be, I'm still going to have it listed as a public hearing. It's still advertised as a public hearing. As Mr. Rogers said that he would like to know when the public can actually come and talk, so I think we'll still keep it at least open at 7:05, and if nobody's here, we'll close it right back down. And then May 6th is the annual town meeting at the middle high school. We do have, actually we don't, that would be the only meeting that we have in between. So if we need to, which I don't think we're going to need to this year, we can always schedule a last minute meeting ahead of time, but I don't foresee anything that we're necessarily going to have to vote on prior to town meeting at this point. We've pretty much voted on all the pertinent warrant articles.
Yeah, the only thing upcoming meeting-wise is just to the point of the need date for the annual town report. If it happens to coincide and we're not done on the 20th, we may need to sneak something in.
A special
on
meeting.
that due date. But
Okay.
hopefully that's not the case, and hopefully it's a quick meeting.
Okay, agreed. All right. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Can I ask you on
I take that
upcoming
back.
meetings?
Yes.
I wonder if we should ask Michael Ray to at least join on Zoom to address the issue that we're talking about relative to whether his opinion, being the lead investigator, as to whether there's potential issues going into next year. Again, my feeling is there's not. You feel that there might be, maybe he has a better inclination to that. Maybe he's not ready to make that statement, but as the investigator and probably the most knowledgeable at this time on the overall process, he may have an opinion at least. Or perhaps he'll, just share that opinion in email or something, but it would be good to, if there is concern on that, and it is the subject of our committee report, maybe we could put some things to bed on it.
I am fine with, if you want to send him an email and invite him, and just let me know what he says, that way I can throw it into the agenda or not. I'm fine with that.
Or maybe he'll make a statement at select board as well.
Right. Excellent. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It is 8:24 PM and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night, everyone.